It's going to be an exciting discussion, especially when it comes to perfumery. And we're going to try to understand why Middle Eastern perfumery are so successful and they're still growing and inspiring the rest of the world. So we have an amazing panel for you today with incredible guest speakers. They've already been introduced to you, so I will not introduce them a second time. Rawya, welcome on stage.
Thank you, Valerie.
As I know that you were born and brought up in the region, you know everything about the region, the secrets, the insights, the challenges, and especially its cultural heritage. So could we start with a short introduction about, not have to be that short, about cultural heritage and olfactive preferences of the region?
Thank you for the question, Valerie. So first of all, it's amazing that we are here in Dubai because a few years ago, when I moved to the Middle East, people were always telling me, why the Middle East? Why the Middle East? Why Dubai? Because I always genuinely believed that this part of the world has its rightful place on the global perfumery scene. And there's actually a few reasons for that, one of them being historical. If you think about the origins of the word perfume, which means through scent, which means smoked. Yeah. If you go around you today, people still use perfumes in bakhur, in a way that is smoked, even going back to the first perfume ever found in humanity, which was kifi in Egypt. And one of the second reasons to me that this part of the world deserves to influence and be a hub of perfumery is also because of the culture. If you think about religion, if you think about culture and heritage, fragrance is actually an important part of the rituals of the ahadith. Cleanliness and hygiene are actually part of respecting yourself and respecting others. And the third important thing that I think we're going to touch upon a little bit later as well is about identity and knowing yourself. Creating a signature scent, creating an identity for yourself is an important part of the grooming processes here in this part of the world.
Thank you, Rawya. It was very complete and structured, I must say. Julie, I'm now turning to you. What is your take as a fine fragrance director at IFF?
So nice seeing you all today. I'm in the region as well since 13 years, so I have a few insights from the culture and the fragrance in the Middle East as well. As Rawya was saying, fragrance is really part of the rituals and super important for the daily routine of every single person in the Middle East. I think the specificity is that our consumer in Middle East are real experts. They know ingredients extremely well. They can recognize many naturals and molecules, and they have learned since their childhood how to use and wear fragrances. Fragrance is also a special way to express your personality, to express your mood, and that's giving a very special role in our region. It's providing you that feeling of being different, and it's used as creating your own signature.
So about emotion.
Yes.
So to complete this first point on cultural heritage and to get the brand's perspective on Middle Eastern perfumery, what is your take?
For me, thank you very much for the question. And also good morning, everybody. So before we start, do you love Middle Eastern perfume? Sah? So it's all about, the Middle Eastern aura. As you just talked about bakhur, the sublimation. That sillage from the moment you put your bakhur in charcoal. So for us, in the Middle East, and at Ajmal at least, this is what we are known to it. This really life that is going from the moment it burns and to the moment the smoke is all gone. It's something that you find is very simple, but it's really rich of many senses. There is some luxurious out of it. And I think there is something that is more important. It's also about the generosity, the hospitality. And this is what the Middle Eastern is all about. Really something that is about giving, this kindness as well. And for me, this is what we need to keep. And this is what is very so special about the Middle Eastern perfume.
About hospitality.
Hospitality.
The cultural heritage is so rich, and we really want to share with the world, and it's welcoming. And now I feel like there is this bound between Western countries, the rest of the world, and the Middle East, and it keeps growing.
It is indeed, because I think the way the consumer are consuming fragrances, we always go back to something that is very inner to us. We all love lavishness things. It can be an expensive luxury bag, shoes, but perfume doesn't need to be that expensive. And I think post-COVID, we all started to be really curious about what we can use and also look for more. So this is also this opening to the other countries, escapism. So for me, it's really something that's very important to bridge countries, the cultures, which is very important. So bridging the communities. It's all about, I think, this perfumery world.
You know, Amandine, there was a very interesting take from a previous roundtable that we organized here in Dubai, saying that maybe the layering concept was actually vanishing. Because now with the rise of niche fragrances, which is somehow a combination of Middle Eastern Arabian fragrances with Western scents, but while keeping the strengths and the long-lastingness of Arabian fragrances, well, maybe layering will be something of the past. So is that true, or?
Again, I don't know how everybody feels about it, but I think it's something that is meant to go on, because layering, it's that moment you want to have your perfume, your identity being displayed out. You know, who have never loved to have a compliment where it's just that emergency smell? Wow, what was that? So layering, we cannot go without it, even if you don't need to come from this region to do it, because you use your lotion, you put your deodorant, and you put your perfume. You already have 3 levels of fragrances. So layering, for me, it has a lot of beautiful future in front of us. So it's not going to disappear.
Thank you, Amandine. Now I'm coming back to you, Julie, because you have an extensive experience working with many brands in the region, and we'd like to talk about today, and especially about these last 2 years. Has something changed when it comes to Middle Eastern perfumery?
Yes, I think since the last 2 days we've seen a new olfactive landscape here in the region, thanks to our clients here present on this stage. We've seen the Middle East becoming really an empire of fragrances that is now not only focusing on those very precious ingredients that you know, oud, musk, amber, and those super spicy, heavy fragrances. I think now, if you look at the bestsellers market here, we have more, let's say, Occidental French fragrances, but that are super powerful, extremely performant. The packaging are becoming a bit more minimal as well, very international, and that's why it's exporting to new territories, to different countries, and it's really, in a way, that performance that is the signature of the Middle East brand at the moment is really challenging for us as perfumers, because we really need to push our perfumer to put some overdose on some ingredient and to work in a different way. That is now, I think, becoming a standard of performance, of sillage, of trails, and of aura. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why the fragrances of the Middle East are so on trend and are very successful at the moment.
And that must be very exciting as a perfumer to actually work for the Middle Eastern region, because you're always challenged by the brand, right?
Correct.
You have to go more performing and then more long-lasting.
It's really a collaboration and a co-creation that we do with all our clients, and that are pushing the boundaries of performance. We also must invent new ingredients, captives, molecules, and naturals to reach that level of performance.
You know, back at the time, we had this discussion with you, Rawya, do you remember? Then you were saying that people will tell you when you started working for the Middle Eastern region, you will not get the chance to work with one single perfumer. And then what happened?
Yeah, it's funny because I was going to say something about those ideas. It was exactly that. When I moved to Dubai, it was in 2010, after having worked in France for a period, and the reactions from my colleague at the time were like, why are you going to the Middle East? You will only ever do off-the-shelf work, library work, and to be honest, nothing exciting creatively. Fast forward to today, it is one of the most exciting regions on a creative perspective, and all our global perfumers are actually really excited to come and work in this region and learn about, like Julie said, you know, how do you overdose that specific ingredient? How do you create a fragrance pyramid that instead of being a pyramid is actually a star? You know, so play more and be more daring.
Thank you, Rawya. Julie, there is something else that we touched upon when we had our call together. It was about the COVID. Because during COVID, we realized that the sales of fragrances dropped down all over the world. But what happened in the Middle East?
Yes. Indeed, during COVID, we stayed home. Many countries using much less fragrances. But here, fragrance is not something extra. It's not something luxury only. It's really like something that you will use on a daily basis. It's a commodity. So it will improve your mood. It will make you happy, make you feel well. And in the region, it was actually, we were still using a lot of fragrances with a growing home fragrance market as well. But individuals continue to use that fragrance. And I think since then, we start working more on that super powerful freshness, brightness, but that will last. And as the ladies were mentioning here, we all wear several fragrances a day and several fragrances at the same time. So we all became heavy user, and that's one of the specificity. And it's, despite all the crisis, something that is still there.
And what's interesting as well is that there is no way back. You never come back to where you were before. When you start using multiple fragrances, you always stay there because you associate positive memories to it.
Yeah.
Now, Ralph, I'm turning to you from a brand perspective. And sorry for keeping you waiting for so long. So what is your explanation about this interest for Middle Eastern perfumery worldwide?
Everyone hears me. Assalamu alaikum. It's very important for me to always look at it from an art of living. I think it's really something that at the start people can feel like the Arabic culture is different. So the approach is I always try to tend to have a parallel between the tea and the oud. Tea is a culture in Asia. Oud is a culture in the Khalij and in the Middle East. And once you get to learn a little bit more about the culture, you have less this assumption of what can happen, what is the fragrance for, why do they put always high, really strong fragrances. And once you get to learn this, it's much easier to understand the culture and much easier to adapt and to create. And we can see all the brands doing the same approach now in the Middle East and other regions. You have Latin America, that they are really strong in fragrances. Even China, they are more and more into fragrances that are strong. And if you look at the past, China was really not at all in that kind of fragrances.
There was something else related to actually Saudi Arabia, because we have a big change in the region that happened recently.
Yes, that's really, really important. If we talk about Saudi 2015 and Saudi now, the kingdom have a switch of 360 degrees. If you want to go and visit Saudi, you can go with the visa, an e-ticket, just drop at the airport. You can do your e-ticket, you enter. I don't want to say it, but I think it's important. Women can drive since 2017-18, not before, with the kingdom philosophy going towards openness and everything. So all this mindset is changing. And I think there is years that are coming ahead that will be very surprising for the region.
Thank you, Ralph.
Thank you.
And now I'm turning to you, Hany. As we're talking about Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, you're definitely the right person to actually share with us your insights and about what's happening right now and the impact on the beauty industry as well.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. Hello, everyone. Quite happy to be representing one of the most appreciated brands in Saudi Arabia, to be representing and talking about the beauty in Saudi Arabia. So starting with your question, and as Ralph said, Saudi Arabia that we used to know 10 or 12 years ago is not at all the same country that we know now. I remember when I first went to Saudi Arabia 12 years ago, it was quite conservative community, and you don't see a lot of women in the work field. And today we're talking about, for example, in our company, in my team, I do have, I think, like 9 ladies working in the team and adding to the value and to the economy of the country. The effect of that, which is really important as a link, the effect of that on the beauty industry is women being open to the community and going to the workforce. This allowed for more expressive beauty, if I might say. And of course, it has its effect on the changing tastes of different products that they use. And of course, the quantity of products they are being selected.
Yes,
instead of
much more,
using it at home
because we
only,
use it every day.
They use it every day. They use it in different occasions and in different setups. Depends. Is she going to work, or is she going to an occasion, or with friends, which was not really the case before. I would like also to take everyone was talking about Saudi Arabia and how open is Saudi Arabia and how now it's easy to access Saudi Arabia. But I would love to talk about how Saudi Arabia today being actually communicating to the world. they are being more open to the world. The curiosity of knowing what is this about, they are actually taking the responsibility of telling this is who we are. So you go to see in Times Square, for example, communication about Saudi Arabia and about the tourism and come to Saudi.
Yes.
And I would love to link that to our brand as well. How do we take the responsibility of being the ambassador of beauty, being a brand started in Saudi Arabia from the early 50s. I would say that we are trying to be the ambassadors of that and carrying the same mission of Saudi to the world. So if you were asking me that about the next in beauty will be the Middle Eastern country, especially Saudi Arabia, and the heritage brand, the most appreciated brands in Saudi Arabia. Now it's their time, their turn to talk and communicate to the world.
And there was something else, Hany. So your answer is outstanding. It's very complete. We better understand now. And there is something that we could also touch upon, 2030 vision that you have in Saudi Arabia, right? So how does it impact the beauty industry?
Exactly. That's a very important point, actually. One of the main pillars of the 2030 vision is the sustainability. And when we talk about beauty, today all our concerns, the companies and the big ones, is the sustainability and the environment impact of the beauty products. So I believe very soon we will see from the country's vision of sustainability, all brands and all companies will try to adopt this strategy into something else, which will open more markets for the Saudi Arabian brands, not only inside Saudi, but in Europe, for example, and in countries who are very serious about sustainable products.
Sustainability, yes. You know, we came to the conclusion at some point of our conversation that we are learning the sustainability language of Western countries to better actually communicate and then apply it to export products. But
Correct.
somehow the best business practices were already applied in the region, but then they were just not communicated for humility purposes.
100%. And this is what I like, actually, that today all the Middle Eastern brands are not being led or they don't follow international benchmarks anymore. We are becoming the benchmark.
Yes,
So the first step that we should take is we be ahead of the game when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to innovation, when it comes to new fragrance factories. This all should come from us now. That's our turn.
Now I'm turning to you, Amandine, just to bounce back on what Hany just said. I feel like there is a personality trait that is very characteristic from the region and from brands here that made it so successful. What is that behavior?
So for us at Ajmal, at least, we have seen a little bit like two shifts coming from the consumer, but as well as the brand themselves. To answer your question, I brought you a few things with me. As I say, consumers are always driven by curiosity. Curiosity is something that is very important for us. It's a very good thing for us. If they are curious, then we create more. So this envy of trying new things that sparked new narratives. So typically at Ajmal, we have this new product. Not so new, it's 2023. It has been designed, it's called Song of Oud, designed without oud. So it's oud bidun oud, right? But then it was very important for us to kind of, as you just touch up, to look at what international brands are doing. Everybody talking about something oud, shoe oud, carpet oud. I'm joking. But why not? Why not proposing a kind of story around oud without oud? So we came out with this product, which really was a very good hit. It sparked many other, let's say, radiation across the globe, that we came out with the whole line, and also going even to the US. So there was no interest for us to use our natural oud, but just talk about the narrative of oud. So the whole collection came of oud of something. And that was one of the first ideas in terms of creativity. But then, this summer, Abdullah, our CEO, decided that maybe it's also about time to really take our heritage and really talk about it. Challenge the status quo. Status quo is very important. Like, why would we do something because it has been done like this all the way around? So we came out with this summer, with this cologne. You're going to ask me a new cologne. Eau de Oud. This time around, we were really wanting to have oud as the anchor. But not oud as we know it, as our natural signature. We wanted to opposite the clash between a cologne that is short-lived with something that is very robust as oud. And this is how this product came out, with a very seamless 2% natural agar wood, which is very difficult to work with, 2% of natural agar wood, but that blends seamlessly with another structure that we know, a cologne, and that is also appealing to the wide audience. And it is doing very well. But again, we should not be tied up with only rules. We have to harness them to create what we could imagine as being the fragrance of tomorrow. So that's the tag that we have at Ajmal, at least until now.
So we were talking about curiosity, but I think it's more than this. It's daring.
Daring as well. 2%
Middle
of natural agar oud in a cologne. Hello.
Daring, yes. And if I'm not mistaken, Rawya, we had this conversation too about blurring the line between styles, perfume styles.
Yes, exactly. And listening to all of the, honestly, I feel like I'm sitting with oud royalty today between all three of you. And what I absolutely love about what you said, Amandine, and what you said, Hany, is really being ahead of the game and coming up with new ideas. We talk about blurring the lines. For me, there is a parallel that can be drawn as well with, cuisine, with the culinary world, where the most exciting things are happening when you've got fusion foods, so French chefs experimenting with Japanese flavors. And it's a little bit what's starting to happen here as well. And for me, Julie, you mentioned the blurring of the lines between Western perfumery and Arabian perfumery at the beginning of the conversation. And that's exactly what we're witnessing here today as well. One of the things that I think remains unexplored and inspirations that we need to continue to look at are actually stories from the region. We've always heard about oud, we heard about saffron, we heard about mukhallat and all of these accords. But what about other unexplored habits, unexplored traditions? For example, some of the pistachio baklavas that you would eat in specific times of the year. At one point, we even started joking that how about we create a Ramadan edition around Vinto? There's always so many cultural stories that we could latch upon to create new scents that the industry requires. And going back to the topic of niche, some of the most significant launches that we had worked on for the past year were actually started from perfumes that the idea was initiated by a Middle Eastern accord and then went on to become a Harrods exclusive or went on to become the next big launch of a Clive Christian, for example, Was there anything else? I don't remember.
There is something else actually about ingredients. But this is a whole question that we'll maybe discuss at the end. Exactly, we'll get back to it. And Hany, I was expecting some chocolate today.
I couldn't find it.
So where's my chocolate?
Yeah, I think if everybody was trying to find what we're
out of
talking
stock.
about, the Dubai chocolate, I think it's very difficult to get.
I must say that I was expecting this. So we were talking about trends and what kind of food trends actually could infuse into the fragrance industry and could be used inside the next Middle Eastern fragrances. And there was one special product. What was that product?
Yeah, that's important to explain that we're not turning our conversation to chocolate, but we had an interesting morning conversation about what's happening with Dubai chocolate, and everybody is trying to find pistachio kunafa, and where we're thinking like, wow, this could be something else in fragrances and perfumery as well. So what's the next viral thing that could happen in perfumery? Of course, it's difficult to know. I don't think the guys who did the chocolate knew that it would be that viral, but it's important that we keep researching and keep trying to challenge ourselves and finding new olfactories and new directions. Why not make a pistachio kunafa perfume or something that nobody thought about before? But I'll keep that as a secret. Maybe we'll do it first.
Okay, I'm sorry. So in a year down the road, we meet here and then we smell these creations together.
Yes, I hope so.
Perfect. Now there is a very hot topic. So I'm turning to you, Rawya. Everybody talks about Gen Z. We say they're very disruptive. Their way, their lifestyle, their preferences are also disrupting the industry. So does it have an impact on the fragrance industry itself?
Valerie, you're touching upon one of my favorite topics because the world is in love with perfumery, and particularly Gen Z is in love with perfumery. And there's always two trends. There's a trend and a counter trend. And the trend that I want to talk about today is that of maximalism. It's about, sorry, there's a fly. It's about beast mode perfumes, which is one of the trending hashtags that was on, TikTok, on Perfume Talk, all over the world. And to me, like this generation today, first of all, is very connected. They choose and select everything according to social media. The second thing also is they are unapologetic. So the strength of the fragrance matters more than the brand. The quality of the scent matters also more than the brand. And you have things on the internet right now where you've got world-class influencers actually reviewing dupes of famous perfumes and saying, you know what, I actually think that, this dupe is actually a little bit more interesting than the original because so, and so. So this generation knows what they're talking about. A couple of weeks ago, we held an event here in Dubai, which was exploring what maximalism means in perfumery. It was called Hyperdose, and this idea was really, what do we do if we push the boundaries of dosage and explore different pillars of strength and intensity and performance? And the idea is really, this generation, Gen Z, they want to be themselves. I think you and I talked about Ozempic at one point. Valerie asked me an interesting question. She was like, are we seeing a return back to a uniform type of beauty that we had in the 90s with the rise of Ozempic and such medications? To which I answered, I believe not. And I took the example of a campaign that meant a lot to me personally, and it was a campaign done by Huda from Huda Beauty a few years ago, where she actually showed some stretch marks on her body, but she painted them in gold. And they were like, these are lightning marks on your body. And it's actually, you know what, we're all different, let's own it, and the perfumery dialogue has to resonate with that and respond with that particular trend, if that makes sense.
Yes, it's a beautiful campaign, definitely. And for those who don't know, Ozempic is a drug actually that was previously prescribed to diabetic patients to provide the feeling of satiety so they would eat less, and then to help them go through diabetes and decrease the symptoms. And somehow it has been used by the beauty industry and by celebrities to lose some weight and to look healthier. And so this is a very long conversation, and there are books on the topic as well to talk about Ozempic. And we see that it became such a big phenomenon, especially in the United States, that now it can also be a source of somehow inspiration and impact the beauty industry somehow. So we should keep an eye always open on what's happening in the wellness industry and the health industry, and see how this can actually trickle down into our beauty and fragrance industry as well. Now, just to bounce back on the key point when it comes to artistic creation, Rawya, I always compare the perfumery industry with the painting industry. And then we somehow have to know our classics. Yes. So then we cannot say that for Gen Z now we're going to forget everything that has been done about perfumery in the past and just do very strong olfactory direction, powerful, impactful, to make them feel good, so linked to emotion, as you were saying, usually. So how do we do to actually get inspired by these classics?
Yes, and actually it's very interesting because we notice, for example, right now that vanilla has come back in a big way, right? Vanilla's back because it's actually the easiest note to smell. And they're a young group, a young cohort of people who may have not yet been exposed to some of the more complex accords, or I would say classics, the same way that you mentioned them. And I see this in my own team. When we've got young evaluators or junior people joining the team, perfume culture is not yet there. And that's something that we as fragrance houses have I would say, the beautiful job of building and of helping people acquire this fragrance culture. So I think a wonderful project that was actually initiated by one of our master perfumers, Christian Provenzano, was why don't we look back to the classics from the last century that were disruptors in each of their own in their own way, like your Angel, which was the first gourmand, or your Chanel 5 from 1921, which kind of brought in this overdose of aldehydes. And how do we reintroduce those notes to a new generation, making it more palatable to them and helping them see why, at this moment in time, that fragrance became a classic? So yeah, work in progress.
Thank you, Rawya. Looking forward to smelling this inspiration from classicals. And Hany, if I turn to you now, about the Gen Z, what is your strategy at Abdul Samad Al-Qurashi to approach and better understand this generation?
First, thank you, Rawya, for mentioning Gen Z, because it's a very hot topic and everybody is talking Gen Z. But unfortunately, when anybody talks Gen Z, they imagine social media and internet. While for me, it's not very true, because everybody is on social media and internet. So we started thinking in Abdul Qurashi how it's natural that each brand wants to attract Gen Z because they are the coming generation, they are the coming customers. So attracting them was by finding the right figure and the right influencer, if I might say, at the same time matches the values of Abdul Qurashi as a brand. So we had this formula, if you would like to say, a collaboration with Huda, and we launched our first collection. We called it Rannet Khulkhal. Maybe it's difficult in English to, it's actually would translate to an anklet, the sound of an anklet. It is a very nice, appealing name in the Arabic culture, and it really resonated well with the Gen Z generation. And Huda being the face of Rannet Khulkhal, actually, I would believe we shaked the market a little bit. It was a great success. The fragrance now, as per the research we do in our stores, we find that customers from Generation Z, girls visiting our stores for the first time. So it was an amazing shift, if I might say, for a brand that has been in the market for 80 years, I would say, yes, and attracting and exciting a new generation.
Everybody's intrigued. It's not just about purchasing the product, it's that everybody talks about it. Exactly. Everybody's intrigued. There is this excitement about fragrances. And this is something that we come across each one of your conversation. It's excitement. We're excited about fragrances. It's not a product. It's not a consumable. It's part of the culture. It's an extension of our identity.
Correct.
It's exciting.
Exactly.
Sorry for stepping.
The performing was amazing, and I'm sure everybody would be curious to know, okay, you did the campaign and you guys did the collaboration. Everyone is talking about it. How is the numbers? How are the sales? Very well performing, very well ranked, and brought a totally new target segment.
So looking forward to seeing it
with
succeed on the market, exactly, and yes, trying everything.
Correct.
So at this stage we talked about olfactive direction, Saudi Arabia opening to the world, the curiosity of Middle Eastern perfumers. We would say daring. Brands are daring and they blur the line, but also about the impact of Gen Z on Middle Eastern perfumery worldwide. But there are two topics we didn't talk about yet. It's about communication and distribution. So, Ralph, sorry for keeping you waiting. I'm dearly sorry.
Fine, don't worry.
You know, I crafted the discussion and I knew you would be like the cherry on the cake, so I kept you for the end.
Thank you so much.
So, from a Middle Eastern brand perspective, what is the communication genuinely applied at Arabian Oud and the distribution strategy for its expansion?
Thank you, Valerie, for the question. For Arabian Oud, I just want to highlight who is Arabian Oud in order to have a global picture for everyone here. So Arabian Oud was created by Sheikh Abdul Aziz Al Jasser in 1982. Actually, it started before, but it was registered in 1982 in the Kingdom of Saudi in Riyadh. And if we look at Arabian Oud today, we're talking about 1,300 mono retail stores in 37 different countries. So we are the few remaining mono retail brand, and I really highlight the word because it's very important. Other brands, they went to wholesale, they went to multi-brand retailers, and it's not a negative point, don't misunderstand me. It's just important to highlight where Arabian Oud stands today. So the business model of Arabian Oud is to go in our stores. So if you want to find Arabian Oud, you go and find it in our stores. It could be in the Kingdom of Saudi. It could be in Panama. It could be in Paris. It could be in London. It could be in New York or Indonesia or Malaysia. And on the second stage, you have the online business. And that's something that we are paying attention to. And we want our consumer to have the same experience offline and online. And we're also opening our franchise business model. That is something very important. In the coming 5 years, communication is key. And I think it's an added value for all the brands. We should not mislead our consumer. We should be careful on how we communicate with them. We should be careful on how we introduce the brand to them. And we should be careful also on how to acknowledge them when they come to our store. And that's very difficult, and I challenge a lot of brands here to do it online. Offline, it's always something that you can act on because you're face-to-face. Online, it's a different story.
There's something that really triggered my attention when we had this conversation offline. How many fragrances do you have?
So
Could you remind me?
we have around 200 fragrances in all the family of fragrances. The name Arabian Oud is the name of the brand. Inside our fragrances, you have all the panels. You have from the flowery to the powdery to the oud to the amber, but it's not only about oud. It's about being a brand in 37 different countries.
But imagine, I'm the end consumer. I love fragrances. And I go to Latam, to Brazil, let's say. And I enter into a shop.
Yes.
But what's my experience there? How many fragrances do I experience?
You will find exactly, and we're not trying to do any cluster so far on the monobrand stores that we have, because I believe if you do cluster, you have to do it on a specific one or two product, not more. Because if you go abroad, that means if I am an Arabian Oud client, I want to go to Brazil, I want to go to Mexico, I want to go to Colombia, to Panama, anywhere, and find exactly the same references that I find in Saudi. So cluster a product, we have to be careful. It's very important.
Which is somehow essential, because you as a customer, when you love the brand, imagine you enter into the shop and you cannot find your favorite perfume. The frustrations.
Yes. Creating this frustration is actually losing a client.
Yes.
And everyone knows here, because everyone have a retail background, a client that is disappointed, it is worsening 20 clients. A client that is happy is always in the flow. So it's very important to be careful about that.
Something else that struck my attention, what's the ratio of international customers?
Okay, I'm going to talk about COVID. It's not a nice thing. But in COVID, we learned, because look, Arabian Oud, when we started, Sheikh Abdulaziz and Sheikh Omar Al-Jasser, when they started, they opened in specific points. It was a marketing tool to open Avenue des Champs-Élysées. It was a marketing point to open in Broadway or in Oxford Street. And we learned, because at COVID, there was no travelers, not anyone. So it was quite empty there. And we were shipping to locals. We were shipping in New York to US, to American citizens. We were shipping in France to French citizens. And we were shipping in the UK also to UK citizens. And that was a learning curve for us. And it showed us that it's not only Arabic people or Middle Eastern people that are paying attention to our brand.
Everyone should actually go into your store and smell fragrances to better understand the attraction for Middle Eastern perfumery worldwide.
Yes, I just want to highlight one point. If we're too early, it will not do the right buzz. And I always take the example of M7, YSL. He was the first one putting oud at that time, and he was too early. And it didn't work. Not because it was not good at all. It's because the people were not already yet educated to this kind of fragrances. So that's very important to keep in mind, that at the end of the day, without the consumer, we don't exist. We're retailers.
There is another very interesting point that we can talk about. It's about sustainability. It's a hot topic. It's in line with 2030 KSA and the new AE vision as well. We all have to make some efforts to reach carbon neutrality, to recycle, to upcycle, to have a positive impact. Yes. What's interesting, I must say, is that there is an event organized adjacent to the Beautyworld event, which is specialized into sustainability and regulation, called the Global Fragrance Summit, which starts on Wednesday. And over there, we talk about sustainability and regulation. But sustainability also involves ingredients. And ingredients are very important for the region.
Yes.
And there is one in particular that we talked about.
Yes. So we in the Middle Eastern country, it's not a weakness, but we don't know how to communicate well about what we do. Okay, it's a learning curve. The European, the US people, they market better than us. It's a fact, but it doesn't make sense not to highlight this important point that you said. For Arabian Oud, for example, it's been since the start that Sheikh Abdulaziz Al-Jasser and Sheikh Omar Al-Jasser, that we plant agar wood tree, in order to preserve the tree. And that's something that we believe it's very strong in terms of communication. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that 99% of the people that are listening, they didn't know about, because it's something that we're more and more communicating on. So sustainability is important. We're looking also at our glass bottles. We're looking at our offices in terms of innovation, in terms of electricity. But the main topic here is really agar wood. We are planting millions of agar wood trees all around the years since 1982.
So this is fascinating. And there is another point. What kind of regulation do you apply to your fragrances?
Okay, so we're Intertech, so we have the CPNP, we have the IFRA. All those regulations are very important for us because you cannot be in 37 different countries and enter those countries if you don't stick to the regulation of each and every country. So we might have some issues with some product because of the concentration that you highlighted before. Our concentration is higher, so we have to be careful on the ingredients, but we have our partners, Intertech and others that we work with that are here to help us on this stage.
You know what was fascinating for me discussing about sustainability with each brand in the region? It was to realize that we do apply regulation, international regulation, and sometimes local regulation is actually stricter than international regulation, but never, ever talk about it. And why don't we talk about it? It's because it doesn't matter to us. Fragrances matter the most. Fragrances are at heart.
Yes.
This is close to our culture. That's what we want to talk about, the emotions that you were talking about, Julie. So as we're talking about distribution, communication, Hany, there is something that's coming up as well for you.
Yeah. So actually, unlike Arabian Oud, our strategy is being shifted now. So we have been always a mono brand, a mono retail brand, and we learned a little bit earlier through our exposure specifically in Mecca. And when tourists from all over the world come to do their prayers, they discovered the brand and they discovered the Arabic olfactive and the oud through their journey there. So we learned that and we expanded globally. Today we are thinking in a little bit different way because we believe again that Abdul Qurashi is the ambassador of Saudi Arabia to the world. This implies on us to open the horizon for other type of distribution strategy. So opening a mono retail brand has its benefits. However, if we want to expand faster and be more available to non-Middle Eastern clientele, we are actually expanding in multi-brands. We're exploring franchise opportunities. And I would love to invite everyone that for the first time in Beautyworld, we are actually exhibiting as Abdul Qurashi to explore and to engage and connect with people and try to understand what are the potential opportunities. We are also learning from that. And we have a nice, speaking about the trends and the next in beauty, in our booth, we're doing a new smart perfume machine. So it's a new experience that I would love for everyone. So I would love for everyone to explore our booth. We're talking about next in beauty. So we have a new smart perfume machine with a new experience. I believe that you will enjoy it. And I was mentioning because I think the mic was disconnected. And our strategy as a brand is that we now we're open to the world. We believe we are the ambassadors of Saudi Arabia to the world. So we're open to different distribution strategies, multi-brands, of course online. We've been online globally for a while, but I don't see there is any need for any Middle Eastern brand, honestly, to be speaking. We're three of us, we represent the industry. We uplift it all together. So I don't see a reason for us to keep limiting ourselves to our own retail only. No, we should compete with all the international brands. We have what it takes. We have the know-how. We have the taste. We have the new olfactive that everyone will want to look for.
So we'll definitely come to your booths.
Please, you're welcome.
And we also believe that you're the ambassador to the world. And now we're going to step back. And we go back to perfumery houses with Rawya this time. And Rawya, then, as a perfumery house, how do you support Middle Eastern brand in their expansion?
Yes, so, we are sitting with retail, which is the part that talks to consumers. We're actually B2B. We never really talk to consumers. So our job is to make you successful. So part of our business model, and that's something that I always like to say, we get paid when the first kilo leaves our factory. So everything we put up front in terms of creation and development, for me, it's equivalent to a sweat equity in your business. I'm investing my time and energy in your business, and that has to be for the long term. So the aim here is to produce the biggest success for your brand. And in addition to, of course, providing a fantastic perfume, because that, at the end of the day, is what's going to make your customers come back and buy again, we as a fragrance house now have a duty to support you in your communication stories. There's an example that I would like to talk about that isn't from this region. It's a brand that we worked with, actually our Spain team worked on it. But it's a fantastic story because they worked utilizing our responsibly sourced geranium from fields that we actually own in Egypt. So these fields, these geranium fields, actually the income from that goes back to schools. So how did we help the brand communicate? They had a whole social media campaign using the drawings from the children from the school as part of their campaign. And that's a very impactful story. It's almost like, Amandine, I think you'll talk about that later, from farm to perfumery. This is a similar example in action. Another way that fragrance houses need to support the brands is to give you access to our rock stars. Because we are, I would say, the same way football teams, they have, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi, we've got the perfumers, right? And when you have in your fragrance house perfumers like Kevin Matisse, the rising star of the year, Julien Rasquinet, who is today the most bankable perfumer on social media, well, giving that extra access to brands, well, it's going to help you sell. It's going to help you talk. And talking directly to the creator, you're talking to the artist. And that's definitely going to support the brands in their communications across generations, really.
Thank you, Rawya. And now, Julie, do you have some social media campaign example to share with us as well?
Yes, indeed. As Rawya mentioned, we are very much involved in the communication and marketing strategy with our brand and clients. And that's, I think, a way for the brands to export themselves and their collections to the world. So I think the best example I have in mind is the success that we have with Kayali and Huda Beauty, of course. So Huda Katan, that was doing the campaign for Abdul Samad Al Qurashi, and her little sister Mona Katan has a beautiful brand called Kayali, and that's a brand that's super impactful on social network and with a very strong educational digital strategy on which dsm-firmenich is very much involved. Then we've seen in Saudi very recently a lot of brands communicating on their new launches with celebrities. So as you mentioned, Huda Beauty, but there is also Laverne having a lot of success with Georgina Rodriguez, the wife of Ronaldo. We have Rick Hoffman, a famous actor that was also promoting one of their latest launches. So I think that's also one of the key points of promoting local brands to the world and making these an empire of fragrances. That's a strong tool.
Exactly. Making it visible.
Yes.
And if I'm not mistaken, you have a special collaboration at dsm-firmenich that you leverage to support brands in that direction.
In terms of ingredients, we do collaboration.
Okay.
That I think we'll talk about after.
Yes, we'll talk about after them. And if I'm not mistaken, Amandine, you wanted to add something on that topic, social media communication.
Indeed, for us, social media is really something that we see more and more. I mean, we live for it because the consumer, again, it's all about the consumer, Without them, we don't exist. But social media has become very big that now we are thriving to be kind of a transparent. Transparency is very key because if you go outside, be ready to give back. So at Ajmal, what we do is all about who we are, talking about our story, from the farm to the fragrances. You also talked about the afforestation, which is also something that's very dear to Ajmal. Planting our agar wood is very key for us. So we talk about it and turn on that kind of information is really great because people want to know more. So social media is very important. You also have to go into different way of communicating, different omni-channels. You have like QR code, the way we consume, all with all our phone. A QR code is very important. So we have to find new ways to reach out to this consumer. And it's very important, and this is what we're striving to reach out. So for us, it's going to be a very big battle.
A big topic to tackle, yeah?
Not a battle, but it's just where we're going. It's where we're heading. So definitely a very important momentum for us.
And to make information available to everyone?
Absolutely. You know, for us at Ajmal, again, if I add more into CSR, you've been talking about it, Rawya. CSR, very key, you know, giving back to the communities as well, very important. Talking about everything that the community goes through so that the brand can exist. So it's very important for us as well. So.
And there is another very hot topic we have not talked about, it's about ingredients. It always comes back to ingredients in the region because we're very close to these naturals, but also now synthetics and then biotacs that we start using inside our fragrances. So it's very impactful, it's long-lasting, and then it provides positive memories. So then when it comes to ingredients, would you like to add something?
We have, of course, our natural agar oud. I'm always proud to talk about our oud without 2% of natural agar oud inside. But we don't have only that. There are also research and development that goes on to find new biotechs, which is very important because, let's face it, we cannot live on nature without giving it back. So we have to help nature sustain. So we have a lot of different raw material that we can use. Biotechnology is very important. The houses are always also here to help. And for me, this is also something that is going to be differentiated, but also being appreciated because consumer, again, asking, what else do you have? So definitely good momentum also into those kind of new capabilities.
Thank you, Amandine. There are two last ingredients that we need to talk about. The first one is the Taifir rose. Everybody wants Taifir rose, right? Even when you go to the perfume museum and then you visit the Sheikha former house, they will tell you Taifir rose is a must. That was our favorite perfume. So how do we tackle this in the region, Rawya?
So Taifir rose is actually one of the areas in Saudi Arabia where they plant rose. It's actually a variety of Rosa damascena. You guys would know better than me. But there's not too much of it. It's actually a smaller crop. It's not that much. So how we've done it is we've actually utilized modern technologies, new generation of headspace, to get the Taifir Rose aroma space that we're launching on our stand this Beautyworld. So please do come and smell it. And I think we're short on time, so I'll definitely, come and see us if you want to talk more about it.
Thank you.
Allow me to add, there is no too much Taifir Rose because probably we sell most of it.
Thank you very much.
And there is another point that I will mention myself when we were talking with Hany. He was telling me, well, there is musk in perfumery and there is our musk, right?
True.
So we have to experience Abdul Samad al-Qurashi musk as well. So come to the booth. And on behalf of the Beautyworld organization, I would like to warmly thank each one of our guest speakers here today for sharing their experience and precious insight with us. It was such an intense, dense roundtable that I actually recommend everyone to download the video when it's available on the Beautyworld platform and watch it a second time. And wishing you all a successful event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
panelists.
you.
Very, very well done. Thank you.
That was a fantastic panel. Nothing like fragrances, especially in this part of the region.